Here's how to make Minecraft horses finally useful. And here's why Poisonous Potato might just be my new favorite item. And this is every way Minecraft can make useless features into useful ones. And hey, the YouTube gods bet me that it's impossible to subscribe to the channel before this house burns down. So, to prove them wrong, light up that sub button down below. It's free, and it helps out a ton. If you want an example of life not being fair, just look at the difference between the cauldron on Java versus the ones in Bedrock. Since in Bedrock Edition we can both dye the water, fill them up with potions, and even use it to make a lot of tipped arrows. But in Java, none of those exist over there. And that's where this modded concept comes in, since this will allow us to throw in a stack of concrete powder at once, and using the water in the cauldron, turn all of it into concrete. Which I've got to say is a lot more simple than building this whole blast chamber design. Certainly a lot quieter. And since Mojang seems to refuse adding any kind of dispenser or hopper functionality to our cauldrons, this wouldn't require either, and it would make it a lot more helpful. You ever wanted to throw milk? Yeah, I can't say I have either, but after seeing this idea, I'm reconsidering. And the idea here is that the same way that we're able to give people effects using splash potions, if we mix together a milk bucket and gunpowder in our potion, we could have a useful way to remove effects from who we want to. Whether that's aiding a friend to help them get rid of poison, or more likely, getting rid of the strength buff that your enemy just took in combat. And I think that since Mojang wants to add in more potion functionality with future updates in the combat snapshots, this could be an interesting way to balance it out. I mean, I for one know that anyone that I'm fighting who's willing to throw milk on me, that's not someone I want to mess with. No way you're winning a fight with a crazy person. Back when horses were added in 1.6 for Minecraft, it seemed like a huge deal. And granted, back then, it was. And ever since 1.9, it really hasn't been. Since with the addition of elytras, why would you ever use a horse to get around? But with this example, we're gonna make the horses more useful by using them to pull around these carts. And now we'd have the option to use a plow to till a bunch of soil into farmland, or create a huge path behind us as well. Or with the animal cart, we could bring along different mobs with us, giving us a way of using boats on land without actually using boats on land, because that's pitiful. And finally, the most useful of which would probably be the supply cart, giving us a double chest worth of storage, all the while not sacrificing the speed that we would get from going from a horse to a donkey. There's even an extra seat for your friends to ride along. How perfect is that? Even though they're called armor stands, that's actually a misnomer, since when you look at them on Java, there's no arm to be seen. So to take our ore stands and make them into actual armor stands, all we have to do is just right-click them with sticks, and with that, we don't have to use any kind of special creative commands to actually get these to work. And then if you decide that you don't want them with arms, just break the armor stand, and it'll drop itself and the two sticks that you used. I think this would make a lot of sense, and it would bring us on Java in line with Bedrock as well, which I'm always in favor of. And it seems like Mojang is too, with how much they talk about parity. Copper was a great addition for building, and while it looks like we might be getting some redstone help in the new 1.21 snapshots, there's still a lot left to be desired, especially when you look at other modded implementations of copper in the past. So I think taking after the mechanics that Simply Sark lays out here could be really useful, and all of that stems from using the lightning itself from a lightning storm to then create energy that we can disperse into different things, whether that's to charge our blocks or our new copper tools and armor. And think of this charging as the copper equivalent of enchanting, where the more energy that you charge them up with, the stronger that they become, with the pickaxe even being able to auto smelt ores and stones. Just be careful, because when you're charged up with all that energy, if you were to step into something like water, you're gonna find out the reason why you don't make toast in the bathtub. Ouch. Compasses are a nice idea, but they've never been nice in execution. Now, don't get me wrong, they do serve a purpose in the overworld, but I think the Quark mod's idea of making these work in every different dimension would be really nice. Now, obviously, we can't have a bed to trace back to in the Nether, so now the compass, instead of freaking out, would actually just trace us back to the portal that we entered from, provided that you had it on you when you came through. And just the same, in the end, it would point you to the overworld portal. And while you could use lodestones to make this happen actually in vanilla, that just gets so exhausting to do, and expensive. So I think to actually have this be a useful feature, it'd be worth buffing it up in this way to actually get it into our hotbars. Ever since the addition of bubble columns, we really don't see ladders get used very much. And the real reason for that is that ladders are just useless now. I mean, why would you pick the option that's slower and less user-friendly? It seems like a no-brainer. So having this change from Quark would make it a lot more useful. Whereas now, if we're holding onto a ladder, we can right-click it with another one to place it, which allows us to drop ladders down without risking falling to your death. They give it like the inverse of a scaffolding. And then when you're on that same ladder, if you look down while climbing it, it'll make you slide down much faster. And finally, they have the idea of having special variants of ladder that could be able to freestand on themselves, as long as there's one attached to a block up top. Because let's be honest, if you have a whole pillar to place the ladders off of, you've probably already reached the top and bottom of your destination anyway. So this would make it a lot more useful in a practical sense. Mojang's gone on record saying that they don't want to add furniture to Minecraft. At least they don't anymore. They did technically add in a chair in the past, but I digress. So if that's the case, why not add in more furniture qualities to the makeshift that we're making? And the simplest option for that would be allowing us to sit on stairs, which you gotta admit looks a lot nicer than trying to figure out this different option using minecarts or llamas or whatever sittable mob we've tried to push into this. And there's a reason why a lot of servers come built in with this plugin. It just makes sense. Right-click the stairs, sit down, you're done. You have a working couch. It seems like just a no-brainer. I'm amazed it hasn't made it into the game, but maybe they're just that confident about not having furniture in the game. I don't know. Invisible item frames are such a valuable tool for building, if you're in creative mode, since for those of us in survival, there's just no way to get these. And so I think it would be nice if we had different options to get these within the vanilla game. And while this plugin makes it so that if you shift right-click an item frame, it'll turn invisible, I've also seen implementations where you could use a splash potion of invisibility to make it invisible, which is definitely a lot more expensive, but having some kind of solution in between those two would make a lot of sense. And I think involving it with invisibility potions is the right idea. I mean, it makes sense, it makes us invisible. Why wouldn't it make this too? Just don't make it that expensive. I don't want to have to spend that many golden carrots just to get myself something that looks nice on my table. With the help of a bucket and access to the nether, you can get yourself an infinite amount of fuel to use in your furnace. And this idea takes it one step further, since here the idea would be that instead of placing the lava inside of the furnace, by just placing your furnace or blast furnace on top of the lava source, then you could use it as a way to get yourself fuel indefinitely. And while I think that's an interesting concept, I do think that this would need to be bundled with something that would make it less overpowered. Like the campfire is able to cook food without any incremental fuel, but it's a lot slower, so a trade-off like that might be good. Or you'd have to use a stronger block than stone to craft your furnace. If you don't, it'll just explode into the lava. And something like that could make lava a way better fuel source for us, instead of just using all the different carpet duping methods that we use in the overworld. Experience bottles are confusing. Not only have they never been particularly useful, but they're also random. And so I think to make these more applicable, we could help out with both. For one, it would be nice if we had some way to store our experience into the bottles ourselves. That way it's not a rare find, but a way for us to actually store our experience, instead of using skulk blocks. And then having these give the same amount of experience every time that you break them. With this, the default being set to 10, which I think seems fair. And that way we can make sure that a lot of players get to see these in their actual world, instead of on like a Hunger Games server, since that's about my only exposure to them right now. If you're playing on an SMP and someone doesn't sleep for 3 days, then that's not just a problem for them, but it's also a problem for everyone else on the server. So that's why a feature like this that we see in the mod Personal Phantoms would be one that I would choose to use, since here the phantoms only attack the player that hasn't slept for 3 days. And to me that seems fair. You don't do your chores, you get a slap on the wrist. In this case, a whap in the face, but different discipline styles aside, I think this also could be really cool if you added this in with something like Don't Starve, where the phantoms would only appear to people who are sleep deprived. For the rest of us, it just looks like they're going crazy. I don't know, I think it'd be a fun take for this mob. Poison potatoes are useless, and that's not a surprise. It's literally intentional. But what if they weren't? And for that case, I think what Quark does here really makes sense. Since here, you're able to feed a poison potato to a baby mob to then keep them permanently at a baby state. Really, no matter how much time passes, they'll never grow up. Stone tools cannot be crafted with stone, which seems stupid, right? I mean, why not call them cobblestone tools if that's what we're supposed to use? And while we can use blackstone for these, this feature with Quark would allow us to use granite, diorite, andesite, as well as the regular clean stone to make our pickaxes, which makes it a lot more fitting for the stone tool, don't you think? Raw ore blocks are good for storage and decoration, but with an idea like this, we don't have to give up that storage just to smelt them, since here we would be able to smelt the raw ore block to then obtain a block of that respected melted material. It'll just take 9 times as long, which would sound like a bummer, but it also allows you to store a lot more stuff inside of a furnace, which after a long mining trip, that could be appreciated. Soak Touch allows you to pick up blocks that you weren't supposed to be able to. That's not a surprise, that's literally what it does. But yet there's still some things that we're not able to pick up that do have items attached to them. Things like vines, frog spawn, and tall grass are all typically not obtainable through Soak Touch. And that's why I think taking the lead of this plugin would make sense. And here we'd be able to get ourselves reinforced deep slate, budding amethyst, and even the pathland block like we can on Bedrock. I don't know, it just seems like it would make more sense than having to guess which ones it's going to work on versus not. There's no way to fertilize nether wart. Since you can't exactly use bees to pollinate them, and you can't use bone meal on the stuff, you really can't hope for anything anything to make it grow faster. So the idea behind the carpet mod would be to change this by using blaze powder to fertilize nether wart. And while I do think that bone meal would still make logical sense, considering that there are bones inside of the nether, I do also think this would be an elegant solution. It would certainly be a quick solution, and for someone as impatient as me, I'll definitely take that. Shulker boxes are great for inventory storage, except when they're empty, since at that point, these things just take up a whole bunch of space, and you can't stack them. And considering we can't put our shulkers inside of other shulkers, our only solution is to put these down or put them in a chest. So I think the idea of having empty shulker boxes stacked would make a lot of sense. And then when they have their own custom NBT associated with them, then they can't. I mean, that's how other things work in the game. Weird to think that it wouldn't happen the same for these two. Chains in Minecraft are good for decoration, and that's just about it. I mean, you can't even make chainmail armor out of these things. So at that point, it seems like Mojang doesn't want to give them much of a purpose. But this changes that and then some, giving them not only a purpose, but a game-changing revelation. Let me introduce you to Chainstone, which would be an alternative to the kind of slime block piston machines that we're used to. Instead, you can use these chains to stick blocks together, but only along one axis, which means you have to use a lot less glazed terracotta to make your machine work. And plus, it just looks cool, which I think is reason enough to add this in. The fletching table's useless, at least to us, not the Fletcher. And the fact that it's been in 6 updates now and it still hasn't gotten its own UI, that makes it funny to me. And so to fix that, the idea behind the aptly put fletching table mod is that we can use this to craft the tipped arrows that we're used to, but it would be more efficient than the actual crafting table. And in that way, it's a lot like the stone cutter, which was also a 1.14 edition. And I think also adding in the ability to use any type of potion to craft a tipped arrow for it would be quite nice, since currently the only way to get arrows of levitation would be to spawn them in through commands like this. It'd be nice to have them officially. Wandering traders aren't the best to use. Most of the time, they're just good for 2 leads and nothing else. So that's why I like this idea here to improve the quality of the items traded, where we're not only getting better stuff in their regular trades, but now each trader will spawn with its own super rare item. And come on, for a wandering merchant peddling their wares, that makes a lot of sense too. Especially with the kind of experimental changes that Mojang's planning on adding to villager trading, this could be a good way to get some extra rare enchanted books, instead of just an extra rare sapling that you already have plenty of. Sniffers are my favorite Minecraft mob, but as great as they are visually, they've never been much for features. I mean, the best that they can give you is a torch flower that doesn't give off any light. Not exactly useful. So to fix that, the Helion Sniffer mod has a couple of great ideas that we could add in the game. For one, you can now saddle a sniffer to ride it. But that's not all you can do, since by giving them a chest, that'll now give them a place to put their dug up seeds. And perhaps the most useful feature is that if you give one of these sniffers an ominous banner, it'll then use that to sniff out the nearest pillager outpost. It'll just walk there a little slow, but it does look pretty cute to ride, so at the very least it's an enjoyable journey. And we didn't just see changes to our sniffers with this add-on, but also finally a change to that torch flower. Because in the base game, while it doesn't emit any light, here the idea is to make it live up to its namesake, which not only makes it a unique flower, but it also makes a lot more sense when you look at the name. Bundles still have yet to be officially added to Minecraft, and while we can only hope that that means that they're making a proper inventory overhaul for us on vanilla, if we do see that, I'd like to see this feature added as well. The idea behind the Bundle Jumble mod is that if you place different blocks inside of a bundle and then place them out, it'll place them at random, which, as any builder can tell you, is great for getting random and organic textures inside of your builds. And speaking as someone who doesn't like to scroll through all the slots on my hotbar just to make a convincing looking path, this would be more than a little useful. And it also gives the bundles a purpose outside of the shulker boxes, because right now, that's their competition, and they're not exactly winning. Minecraft has a lot of different foodstuffs to eat, but whether or not you go out of your way to try those different foodstuffs is really just up to your own personal challenge, considering that there's nothing in the game that would make you want to try a lot of the different foods after you get something good like a golden carrot or a hoglin farm. And so, to explore the rest of the range of what Minecraft has to offer, this data pack makes it so that we have to diversify what we're eating so that we don't get poisoned. And while I think that this idea of having debuffs if you eat too much of one thing is too much, I do like the idea here of having a balanced diet to then get healthier and gain more positive effects. Then we can keep the old way that players are used to, but then also give a reward for those that are willing to sample the rest of the menu. That seems like a good middle ground to me. I've never understood why the clerics need so much rotten flesh, considering that for us, it's completely useless. I mean, maybe it's a snack if you're really desperate, but even then, not the best. So that's probably why so many different data pack solutions have tried to make it so that rotten flesh can be tanned to then get yourself leather. Just put it in a furnace, smelt it up, and there you go. You've got something a lot more useful. And hey, they need to go sell it to the leather worker villager instead of the cleric. At least then you're diversifying your portfolio. Minecraft bats don't do a lot, and that's literally by design. They're just supposed to be an ambient mob. But here we can make an ambient mob into an ambient solution, since by feeding a bat a glowberry, that'll then make it glow when it flies around, offering you a nice little light source down there in the caves. But considering that eating glowberries doesn't even make us glow, I think we still have a ways to go before these get useful like this. But it would be a cool idea. Spectral arrows are an often unused part of Minecraft, and that probably comes down to the cost of the couple of glowstone that you need for this. So really, unless you just got done piglin bartering, it's probably not in your inventory. But here, we're gonna mix together two useless features and make one useful one. Since while there's plenty of people online who will groan about the glow squid, I do think that this simple idea of using the glow ink sacs with arrows to make spectral arrows would make a lot of sense. But let's be honest, even the glow squids don't glow. So as much as I would love to see this, it might take some time before it shows up on Mojang's to-do list. Ask anyone in the spawn proofing business. Light levels are a touchy subject. After all, it's a delicate balance trying to upkeep a moody, broody atmosphere, all without keeping mobs in your base. So in the interest of that precision, what if different redstone signal strengths gave off different light levels? It does make sense. Not only would a weaker signal obviously give off a dimmer output, but there's also 15 levels of both light and redstone signal strength. And folks, that correlation is just too good to pass up on. Among the 1.16 update's vast amount of features, we got something we haven't seen in a while, a new button. I know, that doesn't seem like a big deal, but the last time that we got a new button type was back in the so-called Pretty Scary update of 2012. And though it's been a long time coming, Blackstone buttons had the opportunity, but in many ways, dropped the ball. You see, unlike the other two, this doesn't give out a different pulse length, making it basically useless to redstone. So if we do get a redstone update, let's fix this and then some. Give Blackstone buttons their own purpose, and why not also add in uniquely functioning iron gold variants as well? Getting the orientation for certain blocks can sometimes be a little wonky. Like maybe you're building a roof and the stair you placed just broke your pattern, or you're messing around with redstone and the observer just isn't facing the right way. So I think that's why so many of us are begging for a new rotation tool to be added in. You can see as much with Carpet Mod's flipping cactus for switching around terracotta, or Vanilla Tweaks' wrench item. People really want these features added into the game. So if the new update gave us a simple feature like this that would let us tweak our mistakes and fix them right there, I think that'd be a welcome addition we'd all love to see. Automation has been a staple in crop farming for a long time, but while villager-powered farms are a huge benefit, they're not all powerful. Namely, villagers aren't that interested in every crop, meaning you're out of luck for your nether wart and chorus fruit endeavors. If that's the case, then I think it might be worth subbing in our old pal, the dispenser. When you give this block the proper conditions, then you could have it automatically plant crops. That way, we could bring every crop into the industrial age, not just the villagers' favorites. The sounds in Minecraft are iconic, but what I would love is different filters being put on these sound effects that we know and love. Little details like the sound muffling when you go behind a wall or underwater, or just adding reverberation to different spacious caves and new areas that are added in the game. I think that'd be really spectacular, and it would add so much more atmosphere to what seems to be an update all about that. And if you think I sound crazy, then all you gotta do is download the Sound Filters mod and play a music disc in one of these large open areas to really get a feel of how great it could be. Minecraft isn't always one for logic, but weirder still is when the game isn't even consistent on its own terms. Like, take a look at these two situations that we've laid out involving pistons and redstone, and then tell me this: why does the one on the left not work, but the one on the right does? And while there could be benefits in fixing this just for condensing redstone circuits, I think this speaks to a much bigger issue. Clearly, redstone isn't always the most intuitive, so when you got weird inconsistencies like this, that makes it all the tougher for newcomers to grasp. When you move something with a piston, then it's a toss of a coin to see if it's gonna work or not. Case in point, let's look at fences. Now normally we can move these just fine, but throw a lead on top and now we can still move them, but just not with the lead, which shuts down the potential of some pretty cool machines before they even get started. So at the very least, why not give the rest of us some love and at least keep the things from breaking all the time? For those of you who have spent the time leveling up a cartographer villager, I'm sure you're well and familiar with one of these. And while these explorer maps are pretty cool, especially if you're trying to find that woodland mansion or ocean monument, as soon as you track those down, they're not as helpful. So to help out these villager stocks, what if they also sold maps that led you to rare biomes? Think about it, when you've got your emeralds saved up and you're looking for an adventuring time, then you could go by one of these guys and have them sell you a map straight over to a mushroom island. That could really make for some exciting trips. And it would put some of the more valuable biomes on the game right on the table for us to build bases in it, giving us both a journey and a new place to stay. Every redstone YouTuber's complained about this, but for good reason. You see, it doesn't make a lot of sense that tile entities like chests and hoppers can be moved in Bedrock Edition, but not in Java. And unless the way that they're coded in makes them so much heavier in this version, it just seems like an oversight. It only takes one look over at the carpet mod to see just how cool this could be in action. For one example, it'd be a lot easier to hide your valuables if you could physically move the valuables to a different location. Really, the community's already figured out plenty of cool integrations for this, and that's all just been with the one version, so imagine what we could do if both of them were up to speed. Now obviously, being able to move droppers and dispensers with pistons would be a dream scenario, but if that's not happening anytime soon, then another cool tie-in could be to add in dispenser minecarts. Maybe implement it in a way where you not only choose which way the dispenser faces, but also choose when it fires through an activator rail. That way, instead of using multiple dispensers to bone meal your crops, it would just cost 5 iron to boil it down. Or hey, maybe this could even allow for a mobile defense system to go around your base. And trust me, give this idea to the community for a day, and we'll see a bunch of new mob farms come out of it. Nowadays, we use emeralds for trading, but if this suggestion gets added in, we could use them for tools and armor as well. That sounds crazy since it is just a currency right now, but this has been under review by Mojang, so there might be a time where we walk around the village like this instead of this. But the balance in here would be pretty awkward, since emerald ore is harder to find than diamond, but you can also get a lot of them through trading. So maybe it's best to have them as a tier between iron and diamond that would make sense. That is, if it even gets added in the first place. While it's easy to sit here and talk about all the new features that Minecraft should and could add in for the new updates, I think we're doing a disservice by glossing over the changes that they've added and haven't done anything with. Which is why I'd love to see zombie horses, illusioners, and even giants get added into the survival main game. The developers have already put time into these mobs, and I think we owe it to them to put them into the mainstay. So while I don't personally have any ideas of how to implement these unused mobs, I do think it's worthwhile to take them out of the code, dust them off, and get them finally into the regular gameplay. With all this talk of who do you choose in the mob vote, I think it's finally time that we give these old favorites some time in the spotlight. As we've shown before, vines can be a great asset to put to use in your worlds, but while they do add to the aesthetics, they're not exactly cooperative, and it only takes one look at a jungle tree to see just how messy these things can and will grow. So what if we had a way to stop this? Well, if we did something like this approach, then by burning the tips of the vines, the plants would no longer be able to grow past a certain point, which I think both makes sense and cuts down on some chores. If a netherite shell can already help to keep us and our insides safe from lava and burning, then what if it could do the same for our valuables? One great suggestion I've seen pop up that I completely agree with is the netherite shulker box. Which is, what if we could reinforce that shulker shell with a few of our netherite ingots so that our items inside wouldn't burn or be blown up by any mobs? This can make a really great sidekick for all those nether explorations you've been doing since the last update. And being able to keep multiple different pocket storage items safe from a lava bath makes it even more helpful than an ender chest, giving us a worthwhile trade-off for a pretty expensive best buddy. In a previous build hacks video, we showed off using invisible item frames to give your own kind of jack-o'-lantern faces to pumpkins. And while that original post is a great bit of creativity, I also think it should serve as a great bit of inspiration for Mojang to use in their next texture update. Being able to have random variety, or even choose which one of the patterns that you want to add on top of a pumpkin, that would be awesome. And honestly, I'm surprised that they haven't added in the feature to put a creeper face on top of a pumpkin already. That just seems like a layup. And then on top of that, animating the jack-o'-lantern so that they have a little bit more personality, that would be fun too. Especially if it carried over to the snow golems that we spawn with these pumpkins. Minecraft's pigs have never been particularly fast, but that all changes when they get in the mud. See, taken after Minecraft Earth, this muddy pig variant loves to roam around in the mud found in swamps. And lucky for us, it moves pretty fast when it does, which means we can ride them for a new form of agile transportation. Or if that's still not cool enough for you, then just know that you can shear its tulip for some extra dye as well, giving us both a new farm and a new ride. Leads can be a valuable tool, but they also offer up some wonderful options for decorating, or at least they would if it was simpler to use. As is, to get a decorative rope in your world, we need to use mobs tied to the other end and then hide them away. Which, call me crazy, but that seems like overkill. So instead, why not take the simpler option and just let us tie leads between fences? That way we can have much more cooperative ropes in our builds, and also ditch the questionable treatment of animals. Anyone who's beat the Ender Dragon for sure has one of these things hanging out in a chest or around their base. That's about all it's good for. And while there are plenty proponents of having this thing hatch in certain setups and being able to tame your own tiny dragon, I have to admit that does sound pretty cool, but it might not exactly fit in, especially with Mojang not wanting to make big sweeping changes all the time. So instead, another idea that I would really like to see is some form of conduit-style machine with this idea. How about instead, if we use the Dragon Egg in a machine, we were able to get some form of creative mode flying in the short area. And while it doesn't have to be that, I think it does point out how cool it would be to be able to take this thing into the late game of Minecraft and have some really great reward for doing it. The lighting engine in Minecraft has come a long way. I mean, look back at some of the old updates and you'll see as much. It really stands out like a sore thumb. Which, to continue that grand path of evolution, I think that's why the Minecraft lighting engine needs to add colored lights in the new update. And if you're looking for an example of this, then go no further than Minecraft Bedrock's RTX beta. Clearly, it can be done, and when you look at how beautiful some of these screenshots are, it's really no reason why it shouldn't be done. I mean, having sea lanterns and glowstone give off different types of lighting is one thing, but when you actually see that glass can tint the colors of lights like we can with beacon beams, it's beautiful. Why would you build a double door if you can only open up one at a time? So instead, if there are two doors that are placed next to each other like so, the game should recognize it and open up both of them at once, instead of just one at a time. Note blocks can open up a lot of creativity, but if you're not a musical maestro, then it could be tough to grasp. And I know I definitely fumble setting up the notes right. So to ease the load of memorizing both the instruments and the notes, why not just add some way to see the pitch on side the block? That way, recreating your favorite tunes gets all the easier, and I think that sounds great. Any leaves would look weird without logs nearby. So how about having them decay faster after you chop down the tree? Currently, we have to take 2 trips through the forest, one to chop down the logs, and another to pick up all the saplings and apples. So a faster decay would make it so that we dispose of the forest, and the evidence, even sooner. So the Impaling Enchantment only deals extra damage to mobs that spawn in the ocean, but that doesn't include drowned because they're marked as undead. It's confusing, to say the least, and it could quickly waste your levels if you don't know. So since these enchanted books don't come with an instruction manual, it would be handy to have a plainly written description to tell you what each enchantment does straight up. With the addition of the Deep Dark, we also got a new functionality to our wool blocks, which is that we can use them to block out different sounds from the skulk sensors and shriekers, which is great, but I think we could use these wool blocks to deafen sounds outside of the actual Deep Dark. And for one, using these with minecart roller coasters would be really nice. So Quark's idea of having it where you place the rails on top of wool blocks to produce less sound makes a lot of sense to me. And if we were able to use these with the kind of entity cramming minecart contraptions that could throw off a lot of sound, that I'd be even more thankful for. Because right now I have to turn down my game sounds to even be able to tolerate something like this. I'd much rather just shear sheep and solve it that way. By crafting together a normal torch and an arrow, we can get ourselves the new torch arrows. And the idea here is simple. Load these up with your bow, and you can shoot them to place a torch where they land, which when you're exploring the caves below can be an invaluable resource. Let's face it, without a gamma boosting mod, these caves are big and it's hard to see the other end. So this is at least a new way to find it. And it could also give you a cheaper alternative to getting a flame bow, just not as renewable as one, which I think is a fair trade-off, letting us light up both your world and your enemies. Most people light TNT like this, but now we can light it like this. See, this mentioned feature could allow us to lay down gunpowder as a fuse and then light it to catch fire along the trail. That way, when your TNT contraption explodes, it doesn't explode any of the valuable redstone with it. And this might even be a way to send a path of fire towards your enemies. Just saying. When you're trying to kill a baby zombie, every piece of grass that you find turns out to be an inconvenience. So instead of missing your sword swipe when you try to kill the ankle biters, what if we could swing through grass to kill these baddies? And then, if you actually do want to break the grass, just use any other item than a sword. Signs are a great way to label your chests, but as soon as you try to open with one, it's too tough. So instead of avoiding the sign altogether, a simple right click through the sign would make all of our problems go away. And hey, maybe there's some version of this for item frames as well. That way, we don't have to accidentally rotate the item when we try to open up the chest. Redstone is great, but sometimes it's not always obvious. For example, if we have a target block and you want to know what pulse your shots give off, then the only way to find out is through F3 screens or counting yourself. Not exactly ideal. So instead, what if variable blocks like targets or daylight sensors gave a clear readout of their signal? Then we can ditch the guessing and just get to the building. When droppers were added into the game, the dispenser, in many ways, got replaced. But since the dispenser already does so many right-click functions, why not commit and make that its entire selling point? In that case, it could be cool that since we're able to shear sheep using dispensers, why not let us feed them too? That way, we wouldn't have to add all these awkward pop-up circuits to our cow farms, but instead, it would just handle it out of reach. Which is nice, because I'm not looking for any more errands on my to-do list, and I doubt that you are either. So I've aired my grievances on banner patterns before, but I think it's justified. After all, the whole point of these is that they're a visual medium, only to all look the same in a chest. That just doesn't make sense to me. So let's add some extra proof to each one and give them each their unique sprite. It might take some extra work, but the new look will be much much appreciated. As we've gone through before, Minecraft has its fair share of ripoffs and unfair recipes, but the one that particularly irks me has to be when you smelt full gold or iron armor only to get one measly nugget in return. Now, I'm not saying that a full return is necessary, since not all of this metal would melt down that flawlessly, but this kind of reduction seems extreme. So as Simply Sark mentioned, maybe reworking it so that these smelted down based on durability would be a worthy fix, and anything would be better than going from 72 nuggets down to 1. When you're super late game into a Minecraft survival world, then you're probably well and familiar that sand is not a regenerable item. At least not through regular means. There are sand dupers, but we're really not trying to have sand duplication be any kind of intended feature in the game. So for that sake, I think it's prime time to add in some renewable form of sand generation into the game. For this, we could take the Skyblock route where husks actually drop the sand, which is a pretty good suggestion considering that it would give more value to that mob. But also, my favorite and perhaps the way wackier solution is to drop anvils on top of cobble and smash those rocks down into sand. And being able to farm this item without exploiting a game-breaking glitch, that's priceless to me. Dispensers are famous for automating a lot of features of the right mouse button, but missing among those is the chance to empty and fill cauldrons. And maybe it's just me, but that seems out of place. After all, these things can pick up and place water and lava using a bucket, so why not do the same with a cauldron? And if this was fully implemented, then we could have a way to make operational and automatic lava farms in the 1.17 update, because doing an AFK farm like this is so much better than this mess. AFK players are a dime a dozen on a Minecraft server, but unless you're nearby, it's not always easy to tell who's missing in action. So a simple yet elegant solution could be to add some form of indicator to let you know when someone isn't at their keyboard. In vanilla tweaks, that's as simple as showing their name grayed out on the tab function. That way, it's not going to be intrusive to the other players. And then, once you get back, you can just move around a bit and the name will change right there, simple as that. I love Suspicious Stew as an item, but I also don't like being suspicious. And so, if you're like me and you don't like the roulette game, then having the option to have a pack like this where you can visualize which potion effects is inside of the stew is pretty nice. Now, if we were to get this in vanilla, I would be hesitant with the current implementation. I mean, the textures look great, but they also give away the whole mechanic of the Suspicious Stew. But maybe the ability to craft it with another ingredient that could let you see what's inside, that'd be nice. Or maybe the stews get less suspicious when you craft them yourselves, instead of finding them in a shipwreck chest. After all, if I know what's in it, I don't want to be guessing what I put in. That makes sense to me. If you look across Minecraft's updates, then it's clear to see that the sponge is not Mojang's favorite. After all, for a long part of its history, we had a sponge block that couldn't even absorb water. I mean, the neglect is clear to see. But even since its rework, I think that one feature is still missing. See, while we can dry these things out in a furnace of the nether, if we happen to light one on fire, it's a no-go. Which to me doesn't make sense. And I think if you have a flint and steel no furnace, you should still do the trick. Let's face it, it's not a treat to hold down the right click button. So, since Minecraft has plenty of ways to automatically break blocks, I think it's only fair to add in some way to automatically place them as well. And from where I'm standing, dispensers seem to be the obvious candidate here. And honestly, they already share a lot of that functionality as is, being able to shear sheep, bone meal crops, and even place pumpkins through the snow golem trick. And then secondly, we'd still have droppers to fall back on for the ground that we'd lose here. If you want a block placed, you'll use a dispenser. But if not, droppers do the regular function. And really, if we can already place squashes with a thing, then why not open up the rest? If you place something like a hopper or an observer the wrong way, you're gonna have issues. But the sticking point there is that, from certain angles, you can't tell which way it's facing. And if you ask me, that's an overcomplication. So maybe adding arrows or indicators to the sides of important redstone bits could save a lot of headaches going forward. And with that, folks, YouTube thinks that you might like this video, so see if they're right and have a good one, alright?